The streets of Manila were always alive with sound, the honking of jeepneys, the chatter of vendors, the hum of the city that never seemed to sleep. But every evening, as the sun dipped low and the orange light painted the cracked buildings, another sound rose above it all, the voice of a little boy named Elias. He stood barefoot on the corner near a small bridge, holding an old guitar that was missing a string. His clothes were faded, his face smudged with dust, yet when he sang, everything around him stopped. His voice was raw, pure, and filled with something words could never capture: hope. Passers-by would slow down, their busy footsteps pausing just to listen. Some would smile, others would drop a few coins into his small metal cup, and a few would even wipe their eyes before walking away. Elias sang not for fame or applause but to help his mother buy food for the night. His father had died when he was 6, leaving behind only a broken guitar and a promise that music could heal pain. His mother, Liza, worked long hours selling rice cakes at a roadside stall. She would watch her son from afar, pride and worry mixing in her heart. Despite the hardships, Elias never stopped dreaming. He told his mother, "One day, Mama, I'll sing on a big stage. People will listen, and we'll never have to worry again." She would smile and say, "Dreams cost nothing, Anik. Keep singing." One evening, as Elias sang a soft version of "You Raise Me Up," a foreign tourist stopped to record him. The man smiled, gave him a few pesos, and walked away. Elias didn't think much of it. But a few days later, everything changed. The video went viral online, spreading across platforms like wildfire. People from all over the world were commenting, "Who is this Filipino boy? His voice made me cry. He deserves the world." Within a week, the video reached millions of views. Then came the call. A woman from America's Got Talent reached out, saying they wanted Elias to audition. Liza could barely speak. Her hands shook as she looked at her son. Elias, wide-eyed, asked, "Mama, is this real?" Tears rolled down her face as she hugged him tightly. "Yes, Anik. This is your moment." Days later, they were on a plane to the United States. Elias pressed his face to the window, staring at the clouds. It was his first flight, his first time leaving home. He promised himself that he would sing not just for fame, but for every child who dreamed under the same Manila sky. When they landed in Los Angeles, everything felt huge: the buildings, the people, the lights. Elias walked through the AGT stage for the first time, heart pounding. The next morning, his audition was set. The theater was massive, the crowd larger than any audience he'd ever imagined. As he stepped onto the stage, the lights blinded him for a moment. He could barely see the judges: Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel, all watching him closely. "Hello," Simon said, his voice calm but curious. "What's your name?" "My name is Elias," the boy answered shyly. "I'm from the Philippines." The audience clapped softly. "And what will you be singing today?" "You Raise Me Up," Elias said, gripping the microphone. His small hands trembled. The music began. For a moment, it felt like the world stopped. Elias closed his eyes and began to sing, his voice delicate yet powerful. The first notes floated through the theater, filled with innocence and emotion that silenced the room. As the song built, his voice grew stronger, reaching every corner of the stage. By the chorus, tears welled up in the judges' eyes. The audience was already standing. Elias' voice cracked slightly near the end, but instead of breaking, it made the performance even more heartfelt. When he finished, there was a long, stunned silence, then the crowd erupted. People were cheering, crying, clapping. Simon leaned forward, his voice low and sincere. "That was one of the most beautiful auditions I've ever heard." Sophia wiped her eyes, whispering, "That was pure heart." And then, the moment Elias would never forget, the golden buzzer was pressed. Confetti rained down, glittering under the lights as Elias fell to his knees, overwhelmed. His mother ran on stage, hugging him as they both cried. Simon smiled softly and said, "You're going to change a lot of lives, young man." Backstage, Elias held the golden confetti in his hands, whispering to his mom, "We did it, Mama." She smiled through tears, "No, Anik, you did it." As they left the stage, the audience still cheering behind them, Elias turned back once, his eyes bright with gratitude. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Life in Los Angeles was like a dream Elias couldn't quite believe was real. The hotel was clean and quiet, a far cry from the noisy Manila streets he had grown up in. Every morning, he woke up early, practiced his breathing exercises, and sang in the mirror. His mother, Liza, would sit nearby, watching proudly as he poured his heart into every note. But behind the smiles and the interviews, pressure slowly began to grow. The world now knew his name. Reporters wanted stories, fans sent letters, and producers demanded rehearsals that lasted for hours. Elias had never faced this kind of spotlight before. At times, he would sit by the window and whisper to himself, "I'm just a boy from the streets. Can I really do this?" The coaches worked hard with him, correcting his pronunciation, teaching him how to hold the microphone, how to breathe properly before big notes. They were kind, but strict. During one rehearsal, Elias missed a high note and froze. The room went silent. His eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "I'm sorry." The coach sighed, walking over to kneel beside him. "Don't apologize for feeling," she said gently. "That's what makes you special. People don't love you because you're perfect, they love you because you're real." Those words stayed with him. Still, there were moments when homesickness crept in. Some nights, Elias would call his grandmother back home. She would tell him stories about their neighborhood, about the same corner where he used to sing. "Don't forget who you are, Apo," she would say. "You're singing for all of us." He'd smile, close his eyes, and imagine her voice floating across the ocean to reach him. One evening, he went out to the hotel balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly before him, sparkling like stars. He began to sing softly, his voice rising and falling with the wind. His mother stood at the door, listening quietly. She didn't interrupt, she just smiled, knowing her son was finding his strength again. The next day, Elias walked into rehearsal with a new energy. When the producer asked him how he felt, he said simply, "I'm ready." When the night of the quarterfinals came, the theater was packed. The stage lights dimmed, and a single spotlight landed on Elias. He was dressed in a simple white shirt and black pants, holding the microphone close to his heart. The music began, Coldplay's "Fix You." His voice started soft, fragile, almost like a whisper. Every word carried pain, every note carried hope. The camera panned across the audience, some leaned forward, others wiped tears from their faces. The judges sat still, visibly moved. As the song swelled, Elias raised his voice, the raw emotion pouring out of him. His mother watched from backstage, her hands clasped tightly, tears running down her cheeks. By the time he reached the final chorus, the audience was already standing. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop, he let the emotion guide him. The theater erupted in applause the moment the last note faded. The lights brightened, and Elias stood there, trembling, staring at the sea of people cheering his name. Simon leaned forward, his eyes glistening. "You, young man, have something that cannot be taught," he said. "It's called soul. And you have it in every note." Sophia pressed her hand to her chest and whispered, "You made us all feel something beautiful tonight." Elias couldn't believe what was happening. The crowd chanted his name, over and over, as golden lights swirled around him. Backstage, reporters waited to speak to him, and his mother hugged him tight. One producer told him that his performance was already trending worldwide, with millions of views in just minutes. Fans from different countries were sending messages of love and support. Elias smiled, but when the cameras turned off, he sat quietly for a moment. He looked at his hands, then up at his mother, and said softly, "If my singing can make even one person feel less alone, then I've already won." Later that night, as he lay in bed, he listened to the echoes of the crowd still ringing in his mind. He thought of the narrow streets of Manila, of the little guitar missing one string, and of his father's voice telling him to never stop singing. He realized that no matter how big the stage, no matter how bright the lights, he would always be that boy who sang for hope. The quarterfinals had proven one thing: Elias wasn't just competing anymore, he was changing hearts, one song at a time. The final night arrived with an electricity in the air that Elias had never felt before. The stage was brighter, the audience larger, and the world seemed to be watching. Cameras flashed from every direction as he walked backstage, his hands shaking around the microphone. His mother placed her hands on his shoulders, whispering softly, "Just sing with your heart, Anik. That's all you need." He nodded, breathing deeply. This time, he wasn't singing someone else's song. He had written his own, a song called "Home in the Sky." It was about his father, about loss, hope, and the dream of being together again someday. It was the most personal thing he had ever created. When the stage lights dimmed, a hush fell over the theater. A single spotlight found him standing alone, his small figure surrounded by darkness. The first chords began to play, and Elias closed his eyes. His voice came out soft, trembling, but filled with emotion that carried across the room. Every lyric was a memory: his father's laugh, his mother's tears, the sound of rain hitting the roof back in Manila. The crowd listened in silence, completely captivated. As he reached the chorus, his voice soared higher than ever before, pure and raw. Behind him, the giant screen displayed images of his journey: a barefoot boy singing on a Manila street corner, the viral video, the golden buzzer moment, and his mother's proud smile. It was more than a performance, it was his life story told through music. By the time he sang the final line, his voice shaking with tears, the audience was already on their feet. The judges stood too, clapping with emotion. Sophia had tears streaming down her face. "Elias," she said, her voice trembling, "you reminded us what real talent is. It's not about fame, it's about soul." Heidi added, "You made us all cry and smile at the same time. That's a gift." Then Simon leaned forward, his tone softer than usual. "You just reminded us why this show exists, to find people who remind the world what beauty sounds like. You are the heart of this season." Elias tried to hold back his tears but couldn't. The cheers of the crowd filled his ears like thunder. When the voting ended, and the results were announced, he didn't win first place, but the applause that followed his name was louder than anyone else's. He smiled, clapping for the winner, and when the cameras came close, he said humbly, "Winning isn't about trophies. It's about touching hearts." Backstage, his mother hugged him tightly, her voice breaking. "You made your father proud," she whispered. Elias smiled through his tears. "We didn't lose, Mama. We won in our own way." When the show ended, Elias returned to Manila to a hero's welcome. The airport was filled with fans, waving flags and holding signs that read, "Welcome home, Elias." And, "Our angel voice." He couldn't believe the love surrounding him. His small neighborhood, once quiet and forgotten, was now alive with celebration. Neighbors decorated the street with lights and banners, children ran beside him, shouting his name. Elias was overwhelmed but deeply grateful. He stood before them, smiling, saying, "Thank you for believing in me. This is for all of us." With the money he earned and the support he received, his mother opened a small music school near their home. They named it Voice of Hope. The school offered free lessons for children who couldn't afford to pay. Elias spent his days teaching kids how to sing, encouraging them the way his father once encouraged him. He told them, "Music doesn't care where you come from. If you sing with truth, people will listen." The children adored him, not just because he had been on television, but because he treated them like equals, reminding them that dreams were real. Months later, he was invited to perform again, this time not on a big TV stage, but right on the same Manila street where his journey began. The local government set up lights, speakers, and a small stage. Hundreds of people came, cheering and waving flags. As Elias stood there, holding the same old guitar with one string missing, he felt his heart swell. He smiled and began to sing, "You Raise Me Up," the song that had changed his life. His voice carried through the night air, soft but strong. The crowd joined in, their voices blending with his. When he finished, the sound of applause echoed through the city. Elias looked up at the sky, tears in his eyes. He whispered softly, "Papa, we made it." His mother stood in the crowd, smiling proudly, her hands pressed together in gratitude. The night sky shimmered above them, and for the first time in his life, Elias felt completely at peace. He realized that his dream had never really been about fame, it had always been about love, about giving hope through song. And as the music faded, he knew that his father was listening, somewhere among the stars, proud of the boy who sang his way into the world's heart.